What is up, YouTube? My name is G3 Iron. Go ahead and give us a like and a subscribe if you would like to be notified with more conversations just like this one directly to wherever you get your YouTube notifications from. So today we are taking a look at this beautiful piece of jewelry. Haha. This jewel that got shown off by Bex to the Reddit community. It reads Synthesized Cobalt Jewel. 0.2% of spell damage leached as energy shield. Now, before you freak out on the stats in and of themselves, and there are lots of people that are very, very excited about the stats themselves. Make no mistake, this is going to be very, very powerful. It presents an ability for self-cast as well as all sorts of other types of casting to gain back and life leech on energy shield, which I think 2 years ago, or about a year and a half ago, we just had a massive nerf fest on leech. But anyway, that point aside, I just want to talk today really quickly and open up a discussion for you all, so leave us a comment down below, on the nature of power creep inside of games, and I use that term very liberally here. It's not something that I'm complaining about necessarily. I just do want to say that power creep is, in general, as a loose definition, is the continual progression of a player's stats the further a game grows, or the continued growth of power over similarly developed previous items or cards or game mechanics. So in this particular circumstance, I think the power creep that's actually happening here isn't this particular line in and of itself. I think the power creep that is happening here is that we now have synthesized jewels. I think this is a big, big deal because according to all of the information that we've got about synthesis so far and fractured items, you need multiple fractured items in order to synthesize things, and you can somewhat target the way how your synthesis is going to come out, what the results of that will look like. So what we have here with synthesized jewels now going to be a thing is we have the potential for jewels to now not only have the regular amount of stats on them, which is 4 total max stats, with the addition of a corrupted implicit, but we also know that synthesized bases don't necessarily, their implicits don't necessarily get overridden by corruptions or changed by corruptions, or at least in the terms of helms and boots and gloves, don't get overridden by lab enchants. So essentially what we've got here is the potential for now jewels to have 5 stat lines with an additional potential corruption along the way down the line. And this simply is going to change the way how we all see and use jewels. I'm not looking at this purely from a standard player's perspective. So those of you that are just saying, oh, Iron, why are you complaining about standard jewels? Nobody plays standard. I'm not simply complaining or even raising this as a complaint or even as a thought discussion about standard jewels. I'm simply saying, let's take a look at what the market will do in synthesis based on the information of what we have presently at this date and time. So if jewels can simply have one additional stat line or not have an additional stat line, which jewel would you rather use for your build? I'm not talking big meta picture for prices and the economy. I'm not even touching at that at this point. I'm just saying on a micro level, if you right now are building a build or going through a character guide and you're saying, if I could have an additional stat on my character in all of the different jewel slot sockets and I had that available to me, would I want that? Yes, you would. All of us would. This is why items and rare items are so incredibly powerful in Path of Exile, because you can jam the most amount of stats onto rare items. And it's great. It's wonderful. We all love it. I'm not complaining. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that this is a bad move for the game in general. Simply because somebody says something is power creep, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. A lot of people think that it's bad, and a lot of people often use power creep as a derogatory or negative term. I'm not using that here. I'm simply saying this is definitely setting synthesized jewels apart from the rest of the jewel audience that will drop out. It means that what has happened to, let's say, the belt market before Stygian Vices, or even the rare market before Shaper and Elder bases were available, it means that those introductions of new stats in and of themselves with Shaper and with Elder, as well as with unique new stats along with the Stygian Vice, these shift the market and they shift the way how we all perceive and play the game. If you can have a belt that has all of the same stats but also has an abyssal socket, wouldn't you want the slot for an abyssal socket? That's potentially a bunch of more life, potentially a bunch more energy shield, potentially a bunch more offensive stats. It's wonderful. Why wouldn't you want that on your build? So it becomes a question not necessarily of, oh, well, this is something that only people who are farming mirrors and the top uber ultra wealthy are going to look at. This is probably going to be the new way that we look at jewels. We're not sure yet if this is also going to apply for abyssal jewels or what. Time will only tell on that, and I'm sure somebody, once we find that information, is going to leave a comment down below on that. But once we figure this out, it's essentially saying that we are getting new spectacles or a new perspective on jewels in Path of Exile in terms of the number of stats that are going to be available. Of course, this particular post will be linked down below if you want to join in the discussion there. But one more thing before I sign off for the day. I've got more work phone calls that I've got to run out and do, so this is just a quick video. But I wanted to show you this on POE Ninja. This is looking at the standard belts base types, just looking at prices. So now this is looking at the more macro picture. Take a look at the belts that are valued right now. You've got the crystal belt at I-86. That's just the regular crystal belt, right? That's the only one that's not Shaper or Elder influenced that's anywhere close to being valuable in standard right now, right? And that's valued at about 80C. Everything else above that is 100C plus, right? So obviously, when Elder and Shaper came into the game, they're simply better to farm as a base item for crafting. Now, when we look over in Betrayal and we swap what league we're looking at, and you look at those base types and you sort it by belt, the same thing happens. Elder, Shaper, Shaper, Elder, Shaper, Elder, and then boom, Crystal Belt, about 80C is what you're looking at. And then boom, look at the rest of these. Elder, Elder, Shaper, 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 Elder, Elder. Oh, look, a Vanguard Belt, 8C, right? So you see that the entire market shifted because if there's more stats available on an item, of course we're all going to want to use the item that's got more stats on it. And if jewels, specifically synthesized jewels, we can synthesize using the synthesizing process by combining different jewels that have got the fractured tag on them in order to target, craft, and create these wonderful bases that we can then chaos spam, that we can then alt regal spam, that we can then exalt on, that we can then use in our slamming process through the betrayal reward system, through the bench. Yeah. Jewels are going to look a lot different in synthesis. They're going to look specifically one stat line different, and that one stat line could be all the difference depending on the unique stats that do become available through synthesized jewels. So I'm very interested in this. It is definitely power creep. This is more power getting added to us as time goes on throughout the game. Question of whether or not this is going to be good for the game, whether or not this is going to be good for our characters, whether or not this is going to be good for the economy. I'll leave that to you all to leave us a comment down below and debate down below. I enjoy reading and participating in the discussion that we all have. So leave us a comment down below and let us know, is this going to be good or is this going to be bad? What do you guys think? Are these going to be incredibly rare and they'll simply be never found and only a couple of people will have them? I don't think so. It's taking advantage of a league mechanic and it's an item slot that's pretty prevalent. I think this is going to be a rather common-ish thing, even if it's rare as Shaper and Elder rings. I think this will still be pretty relatively common. So leave us a comment down below, and I hope that today is the day that a Mirror of Calandra drops for you as you are getting hype for Synthesis League.